Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Prince Podcast. My name is Michael Dean. Joining me today, we have a gentleman who has been on the show before, and he has just reminded me that we are at an anniversary point of when we first did our first interview. Please welcome John Wesley Payne. Sir, how are you?
Yo, what's happening?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. Just glad to be here.
Yes, sir, man. So you said this was been 7 years since the last time we did the interview?
Yeah, as I was just saying, man, this is our 7 year. This month will be our 7 year anniversary of us doing our first interview,
Wow.
and as we all know, come Monday, it'd be the 9 year anniversary of us losing our brother Prince.
Wow.
On the 21st, April 21st.
That's
Yeah.
I knew that, but I don't know, for some reason it just kind of, I guess I wasn't dawning on it or dwelling on it, I should say.
Yeah.
But before we get into our conversation, man, let the people know who you are. Give a little bit of your resume, man, because you're extensively in the music game. So yeah, man, talk your stuff.
Well, my name is John Wesley Payne. I'm a songwriter, producer, engineer, multi-instrumentalist, and I've worked with a lot of different people. A lot of people just came to know of me from your show because they know of me from being the only guitarist, having the distinction of being the only guitarist on the planet that was called directly by the Revolution to come in and play with them to cover Prince's guitar parts after his untimely demise 9 years ago. We played a week of sold out shows at First Avenue. And it was a really an amazing moment. But in addition to that, I've also worked with Larry Graham and Graham Central Station, which is how I got to meet Prince and jam with Prince. And then before that, I worked with George Clinton. I worked with members of Digital Underground. And who else? George Clinton, Digital Underground. Oh yeah, I was the bassist for this group called The Coup. I don't know if you guys know Boots Riley and The Coup.
Yeah.
Yeah, The Coup was the rap group, the hip hop group that had the World Trade Center blowing up on its album cover a week before it happened.
Wow. Yeah.
And
he's like a big director now, movie director.
Yeah, he did Sorry to Bother You. Yeah, with my man who's in the
I didn't know you work with them. Okay.
Yeah. I'm on that album Pick a Bigger Weapon? I think that was called Pick a Bigger Weapon. Pick a Bigger Weapon. And I recorded on that album playing this bass line on there. It's called, the song's called I Just Wanna Sleep Around and Hang With You. I don't want to say the word.
Oh, man, you can say.
But I want to sleep around and F with you all day. I think that's what it's called. But I'm playing this incredibly funky bass line with the Mooger Fooger. Boots put the Mooger Fooger on me.
Wow.
And the bass line is funky. And so it's funny because when he last went out on tour, he had the guys from Toni as his band. And Elijah Baker, who's the bass player, he's like, man, I had to try to reduplicate that bass line, man. It was impossible. But anyway, yeah, so I had the privilege of working with The Coup. I worked with JT the Bigger Figure. A lot of Oakland hip hop cats I played on the record. A lot of those records I didn't put my name on it. I just went in, did the session and cashed the check.
Wow. Okay, so JT the Bigger Figure, I know who that is. In my mind, he's one of those unsung heroes from the Bay. Like
Absolutely.
A lot of people probably, well, I'm not saying people don't know who he is, but he's just one who doesn't get spoken enough about. And he's connected to a lot of people. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and he was one of the first ones that was doing the whole independent thing, so him, Messy Marv, all those cats, man. So yeah, man. So yeah, I worked with a lot of different people in all different genres too. Funk, hip hop, rock, EDM. Yeah, so
let me ask you this before we go into some other stuff. So you've mentioned a lot of people from the Bay. Man, talk to us about the Bay, because the Bay is a stronghold for music. really for any genre. We could lay down the list of people that came through, like the ones you've mentioned, with Sly and Family Stone. Citizen Man, Metallica.
Yeah,
I think
Metallica,
it's from the Bay. Sheila E, of course, 2020 Tony. E
Journey.
Journey, yeah,
Yeah,
E40.
yeah.
What's it? Santana?
Fleetwood Mac, Santana. Yeah,
Um, I mean, the list goes on. Digital Underground.
yeah. Not Fleetwood Mac, but Jefferson Starship.
Just okay, okay.
Yeah.
What is it about the Bay that is curating? All of this is coming out of that, and particularly Black music, because you not only funk and R&B, but in terms of hip hop, in terms of the entrepreneurship. You mentioned JT. If I'm not mistaken, Master P really low key came to the Bay first
Absolutely.
to get
Richmond.
game.
Yeah, he's
Um,
from Richmond.
the movie The Mac. There's just a lot of culture coming out of that I don't know if we really understand. Sort of the again, it was a stronghold for music. You being a musician out of that area, what can you speak to that, man? Like, what is your thoughts?
Well, I mean, this is as Boots said, this is the ground for where the Panthers grew. You know,
Right.
I mean, a lot of strong movements started here, man. A lot of very meaningful things happened here in the Bay, and the Bay musically is so strong because it's such a melting pot of cultures, and so when you have all these different flavors to grab from, man, you bound to get hit by something, and a lot of it when you talk about R&B and the funk, a lot of it came from the church. All of us grew up in church.
Right.
All of the Tonys, all of us. Matter of fact, Tim Riley, who's the silent member of the Tonys, the one that never says anything, he lived right across the street from me, and you know, him, his brother Dion on drums, and me on bass. We all played in his uncle's church.
Okay.
Joseph Myler. He had a church called Love Temple, not to be confused with Love Center, which was Walter Hawkins' church, not too far away. But yeah, we all played in the church, and then I played in my mom's church. So that funk started in the church.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that's the only way. That's the only place I can want to say real funk comes from, because you have people trying to imitate it and duplicate it, but it ain't nothing like that funk from the church,
Mhm.
which is why the Tonys had such a different sound,
Right.
and why our sound is just totally different, because it just comes from that root. You know?
Mm. What so you mentioned about being in the band in church. um Tell me about, talk me through that time. Like, what was it like being, how old were you when you guys were playing, and really, like, what got y'all to play? Like, how did you get the instruments? Like, who sort of put the thing in you guys' mind that you should be a musician?
Well, as I mentioned to you, years ago, man, I was surrounded by music in my home, and I was surrounded by a diversity of music. So I got blues and jazz from my dad. So I had Stanley Turrentine, Bobby Blue Band, Bobby Womack, Johnny Taylor, all that stuff.
Your mother for you.
Yeah, that came from my dad. And then my mother, she was in the gospel and R&B. So I got Mahalia Jackson, Shirley Caesar, Aretha Franklin, James Brown, Sam Cooke, Jackie Wilson, all that from her. And then here comes my brother, who was in the military. He was just a total funk R&B head. So from him, I get Earth, Wind, and Fire, Bohannon, Barry White, P Funk, and Slave,
Yeah.
Barcase, Rick James, all that. And then for my cousin Curlin, she had very eclectic music taste, and she was the one that was trying to play guitar. So from her, I get Jim Croce, Elton John, uh, um, ABBA,
Okay.
Tom
Okay.
Jones,
Okay. I
uh,
see where you're going with this.
all the rocks,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, Sly and the Family Stone, and then of course Prince came later.
Hmm.
But with all those genres, with blues, gospel, R&B, funk, rock, country, you know,
Yeah.
it's just gonna hit you. And so I started playing my cousin's guitar, that beat up guitar she had. I just started messing around with it. And I would always try to bend the strings like Jimi Hendrix, and I was always popping the last two, the E and B strings. And the first four strings on the guitar are the same as the first four strings on the bass. So when I would pop those high strings, then I would go and start playing the bass on the four strings. So that's how I learned how to play guitar and bass at the same time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so it's interesting to hear sort of the trajectory of the music from your parents and what they were into.
My
I think
family.
your cousin,
Yeah.
and then
It's
what
like
he
my
sort of
sister. Yeah. She
the
was
sister
raised.
and your cousin, and then like take me to so when you become a teenager, what's the music? Who are your sort of my era or the ones just in front of me that you're listening to? I don't know, trying to be or sort of getting learning and listening to. What was the ones that inspired you?
Well, it's definitely, started with James Brown.
Okay.
And of course, my mom also listened to Ray Charles. I left Ray Charles out. But
Mm.
James Brown and the Sly and the Family Stone, the Jimi Hendrix, and then in the more contemporary vibe, Slave, and then Ray Parker Jr. and Radio.
Okay. A lot of people don't talk about Ray Parker. I
They
think
don't, man. They
yeah.
don't. And what a lot of people don't know is Prince was heavily influenced by Ray Parker
Mm,
Jr. because Ray was one of the first black artists who was, in addition to Stevie Wonder and stuff, he was one of the first black contemporary artists that was writing and producing and playing everything on his radio.
the whole
Actually,
thing.
he's one of the first black artists that has his own recording studio.
Mm,
You
okay.
know, and because I don't know, it's got to be in a book somewhere. But Ray is the one that went over and helped Prince hook up his first
Plug
recording.
it in. Yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because Ray was doing it. Ray was a genius, man. And so I love Ray Parker Jr. Right? That was back then. I wish I was light skinned with a shag. Because he got all the girls, man, with the
Right.
little mustache and that little
Right.
just that smooth look. But Radio was just dope. I just thought they were so dope. And I remember Ray had a guitar and a bass that he built that had an FM radio in it.
Okay.
It had a built-in AM FM radio in it. But I love Radio, man. And then I mentioned Slave and the Earth, Wind and Fire, the Isley Brothers too, man. Oh,
Okay.
the Isleys. Ernie, who was a direct descendant from the Hendrix
Yeah.
lineage of guitar playing, because Jimmy played guitar in their band.
For them, yeah. They need to have like it would be cool to see like a biopic or something with the Isley Brothers because there's so many different eras of them that it's easy to think, oh, they're just this era, or you don't realize no, they hitting every even all the way to the shit they was doing, with R. Kelly. But I'm just to reiterate that they have been around the music for so long and had hits in every generation, man.
And still even now.
Yeah. Still out there doing
Still out there touring.
yeah,
Ernie and Ronald, they still out there touring.
yeah.
But going all the way back to Shout and all that stuff, man, and Love is a Wonderful Thing. And then what really, the era that we know, man, was the 3+3. That's when the younger ones came. When God rest his soul, we just lost Chris
Oh,
Jasper,
Chris Jasper, yeah.
man, Chris, genius, man. He was so instrumental in that sound that they had,
Mm.
the synths, all this stuff here,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know, the Moog, and it just brought him to a whole nother level.
Wow, man. Yeah, all of those cats, man, I don't want them to be forgotten, and so it's
Never.
because there's so much music and there's so even when you talk about Ray Parker, it's it's a lot easy for people to just think, "Oh, you mean the guy who did the Ghostbusters?" No, like, way before, you know.
Well,
I can understand why you would only think that, but if you really realize, like, that dude is so much more than that.
well, if you talk about documentaries, everybody, if they haven't, they need to watch the Ray Parker Jr. documentary.
Oh, I didn't even know there was one.
Oh man, are you kidding
You just
me?
put me up on it. Yeah,
There's an incredible Ray Parker Jr. documentary that came out about a
was it a
year
couple years
ago.
ago? Oh, maybe I did vaguely hear about this. Now that you say I haven't
Yeah,
seen.
I think
Yeah, I got it. We're gonna definitely put the link to that
yeah,
in the show notes for sure.
yeah, man. I mean, you don't really realize how instrumental he was in just music. Period. See, a lot of people don't know. Um, Love me, doom doom, right? The Shaka Khan tune.
Yeah, yeah,
Ray
yeah.
wrote that,
I don't know if I knew that. I don't think I
huh?
knew. I don't think I knew that.
Ray
Dun,
Parker
dun,
Jr.
dun, dun,
wrote that. You got the love.
dun, dun.
Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah.
his documentary is called "Who You Gonna Call." That's the name of the documentary.
Hilarious. Okay. Okay.
And it's really, really great, man. And also, "Got to Be Real" by Cheryl Lynn. That's him
Okay.
playing
I knew
guitar
that
on
one.
that.
Yep.
Um, and then he wrote "You Make Me Feel Like That." Remember that white dude, Leo Sayer? You make me feel like dancing. I want to dance the night away. You make me
Man,
feel
dude.
like dancing, dancing. Well, anyway, Ray wrote that,
Mm.
and he didn't get credit for it. And he
Huh.
talked about, well, you guys see it in the documentary. He
Okay.
talks about that,
Who
but
you
yeah,
gonna call? Who you gonna
Ray was a huge influence way before Prince was. Ray Parker Jr. was a big inspiration.
Wow. Okay. What was the now we somewhat similar in age, so I might act like I don't know what what was popping, but for the audience, like what was I mean, what was the music when you went to the record store? Because that was a thing back then. Who you couldn't wait to go, like, man, I can't wait for that new such and such to hit. I'm gonna go get it as soon as I hear about it. Who are the
Well,
people you went?
definitely, it was definitely like the whole Prince era, the Prince
Oh,
and Time stuff. We're one of the few that grew up during that time when it was happening.
mhm.
So, like
What
I
what do you oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna say, with that said, how did you guys see Prince? And I'm saying in real time. I assume at this point you are already a musician, or you guys are definitely, you know, got your instruments and doing your thing. How did you see Prince in the time? And I don't know how much you knew that they were working together or not, but like, I'm just curious what you guys thought of it.
Well, we thought it was funky. I mean, when I first heard "Soft and Wet," we touched on this in the early interview years ago. I thought it was genius because it had all those synthesizers, and like I said, that song, not the record, but that particular song, "Soft and Wet," has absolutely no guitar in it. It was just all synthesizers. He's playing all the keyboard, so it sounded really different, man, than anything else. I said, man, who is that? And then he's singing this falsetto. And so then I went and picked up the album and I heard all the variety of music and him playing everything. I was like, oh, this is dope.
Mm.
And then of course I heard that he recorded it right across the bay over in Sausalito. You know, so he has a very strong connection to the Bay Area. Because he knows. A lot of people like to say the Minneapolis sound, the
Right.
Minneapolis sound. And don't get me wrong, there is a sound, but the Minneapolis song was the sound was very much born and connected from the music here in the Bay Area.
Mm.
So don't get it twisted. That's why later on, if you saw, most of the people in his band came from
From
right
the
here.
back. Yeah.
And I got a story about that later on.
Okay. Okay. So you knowing, well, that's the thing. So when you bought the album, then you saw, oh, they recorded that around the way. Like, how did that mean anything to you guys back then? Like, oh shit, okay. Yeah.
Back then, it didn't. It didn't at the time, because we just thought the music was great. We were just grooving on the music. But it
Got
wasn't until later that we found out the significance of him recording it here and why he recorded it here.
Okay.
You know, because it's so funny. We busy trying to get to Minneapolis, and they busy coming out here.
Exactly. Okay. Right. That's kind of what I was wondering, because I'm like, y'all are there, and again, the Bay is a stronghold. Well, I don't know if y'all saw it that way at the time, but when you understand all the stuff that came out of that, and then here's a cat that's seems to be pulling from your area, right? But then at the same point, like you said, he's also the poster or the lynching point for a whole new movement, that's coming out. But like you say, you can see that it's sort of pulling from some of the Bay stuff too to
Yeah.
become this whole other thing. When do you guys or when do you like, okay, I'm gonna do this musician thing for real, for real. Like, we're gonna start doing bands. I want to lead me up to your history with the Tonys and everybody involved, and y'all coming through, and then the Prince thing.
Well, let me say this.
Yeah.
This is my, when I have to, be honest and forthcoming with you. When we did our first interview, I said absolutely nothing about my connection with Toni, or none of the members, and that's only because I only claim people who claim me.
Gotcha.
Okay. And so this is my first time ever speaking publicly about the Tonys and my connection with them. And like I said, I only claim those who claim me. And the reason I'm speaking of it now is because, as you may know, several years ago, there was this amazing documentary that was released called Loyalty, No Royalty, which was produced by my homie and classmate and bandmate Elijah Baker. Shout out to E Black,
Salute to Elijah.
E Leger. He was the bass player and one of the original founding members of the group and the band. But in that documentary, he mentions me, a couple of times, and I was like, wow. He's the first one from that camp who had the realness and the insight to publicly mention me and my involvement with them.
Okay.
And so when that happened, that just opened up a whole new door of things. And so we started talking, and we were talking like every day. But what's so funny is a few weeks before that, there was a band playing by my house, and I was on my bike. It was a beautiful sunny day. And I said, oh man, they sound pretty good. And I said, I'll come back and check them out. And I came back and I talked to the guitar player. Well, first I talked to the drummer. I said, man, you guys need me in your group. You need a front guy. And he goes, well, man, talk to the guitar player. And I went and I saw the guitar player. And the guitar player was Kenya, who happens to be Elijah's brother.
Okay.
His name is Eric Baker, but we call him Kenya. And he said, he didn't realize who I was because I had my shades and my bike helmet on. And I said, what's up, Kenya? He said, who? And I took my helmet off. And he said, oh, man, Joe. He said, man, don't move. Stay right there. And he got on the phone and started FaceTiming somebody. He said, man, you ain't going to believe who I'm in front of. And he put the phone up. And it was Raphael.
Okay.
Because he said, man, we was just talking about you the other day, John. And so me and Raphael reconnected, and man, he's like, man, just give him my number. And so me and Ray we reconnected, man. And it's like, man, you gotta come down to the studio, North Hollywood. We gotta hook up, blah, blah, blah. And then a week later, that documentary dropped.
Okay.
And I went, oh no. and so I contacted Ray. I said, Ray, you need to contact your cousin. You guys need to get together and make this right. I texted him and he goes, well, man, I don't know what I can do to make him whole again. I don't know, And I said, well, do something because he's going to release this, And I don't think Ray realized I guess he didn't take it too seriously, but then Elijah put it out there and the rest was
kind of blew up. Yeah.
Yeah, and so anyway, after that whole thing, Elijah and I talked, and there was discussions about me being in the band that he has now called 3TOB.
Okay.
And we talked for months, and it got that close, man. But things kept happening where I was supposed to go to the studio, and something would come up, One time I was supposed to go to the studio, and then there were rolling blackouts, and the whole studio was blacked out. And so everybody kept telling me, okay, this is probably a sign that you probably shouldn't join. And I was torn, man, because I love both of them. I love all those guys with all my heart. They're my brothers. We grew up together. So it hurt me to see them beefing like that. And I just didn't want to get caught in the middle. So I never publicly expressed that before, but that's what happened with me. I just kind of wanted to keep my distance, but still show love and support for everybody.
Right.
But
From an outsider's perspective, just well, I will say this: watching the documentary, and I don't know either one of the gentlemen you're talking about. Huge, I will say this up front, I'm a huge Raphael Sadiq fan. I'm a huge Toni. But watching that as an outsider and as a fan, bought all their albums in real time, it was so disappointing. And just the sense, it was disappointing to me that brothers had to come to that level where it was that type of drama. You know, not to say that stuff doesn't happen, but it was just the fact that I didn't know anything about it. And then now I do, about it. And I'm just like, God damn, I hope they can get this shit together. Because to me, Toni is like, how they be all on the Beatles when I was growing up. Everybody's, oh, the Beatles. For me, that's what Toni represents.
wow.
We grew up on that music. We played that. We would buy them albums and listen to them for years and years until the next Toni album came out. And them albums, even today in 2025, those albums are dope. Like, there's some good ass songs on there that we grew up with. That's a part of, for me, Black people, that's a part of our culture.
Yeah.
Anniversary, all them songs, those are our staples. So it was unfortunate to hear. I was like, God damn, this is why we didn't get after House of Music. And maybe there was some other stuff going on too, but it was just, my point is to say it was disheartening.
Yeah.
To hear about that type of stuff.
It was because I had no idea that. I mean, I had murmurings that there was issues, but I was busy doing my own little independent thing, and so I wasn't, deeply entrenched by. I was close enough to where I heard certain things, but not to the level of what Elijah presented and other guys presented in the level about being left behind in the limousine and them not be involved in a lot of the key moments. And I was like, man, and it's so funny because during that period, and see, I already kind of knew that, like I told you, just being bandmates with all those guys. Like I said, I was not in Toni, but I worked with every single last one of those guys in the band, with the exception of Jubu. He came later, the guitar player, John T. Smith.
He's a bad boy too.
He's incredible, man. He's incredible. He's my homie now. We talk occasionally.
Okay.
But back then he wasn't involved. But I knew all those guys because at one point or the other we were all in bands together. So getting back to what you were saying about initially about me speaking on them, Elijah mentioned the beginnings. Now I can't personally vouch for what happened later on because I wasn't there, but I can tell you right up to the point that what he spoke about in regards to me being, he was spot on. Everything verbatim was exactly how he told it in that documentary. And so and like I said, I don't know, I can't vouch for what happened afterwards because I wasn't involved in the group, but the documentary opened a lot of doors. Both good and bad, but I can say it really got us back connected again. And
well, that's a great thing because at one level it's great to hear that you get to reconnect.
Yeah,
cats that you grew up with, you're around, and you imagine now we're a little older, so it's like, okay, man, yeah, okay, that's dope. But how you doing? You know what I mean? Being able to sort of really connect and make sure people's good. Wanted to go back for going this. Let's talk about let's get into the earlier times that you didn't mention in terms of working with the Tonys and being around them. Walk us through that journey.
Okay, well, to link everything together, in regards to that and my beginnings. So I started playing guitar, bass. Then we had a chord organ around the house, and I was playing drums. And so I started playing everything, what little instruments I had, pieces of them, and I started playing. And then across the street, as I mentioned to you earlier, Tim Riley, who's the silent member of the Toni, he was my neighbor right across the street. So we started hooking up and jamming together. And so Tim is 2 years older than me. So my last year in school, his last year in school was always my first year there. So in elementary school, right as he was leaving, we had connected. And then junior high school, he was on his way out, and I was fresh face coming in. We connected. And by that time, he was playing keyboards. He had moved over from drums and was playing keyboards, and then I was on bass with Mr. Burris, our junior high school music teacher. Shout out to Ronald Burris. And so he graduated from Madison Junior High, as I did, and then he went on to Castlemon. And I said, okay, man, well, I'll see you up there, man. I'll see you up there. You know, in 2 years, I'll be there. But at that time, I had got accepted to go to art school because I was also an artist.
Okay.
And I got accepted to go to art school. And I was, my mom was excited about that because I, wanted to be a graphic artist. I wanted to draw comic books and stuff. There were 3 main artists. You see the Millennium Falcon back there. I'm a Marvel and Star Wars fan.
Oh man, don't even get me started.
There's Obi-Wan Kenobi hanging from the wall back there.
Okay, I do see that now that you say that. That's hilarious.
And then you see Dr. Fink back there on the wall. Yeah. That was a show that he played with me. But anyway, I was an artist. It was 3 of us. It was myself, a guy named Jonathan Amos, and another guy named Matthew Broom. Matthew Broom is the only one who went on and did it professionally. He drew for DC and Marvel.
Oh wow!
Yeah. Matthew Broom.
He made it. He got it. Okay.
He went on with it. He stayed with it. So getting back to what I was saying is, I got accepted to go to art school. Problem was, I would have to get up at 7:00 in the morning to catch the 83A bus to downtown Oakland. When Madison was just a 15-minute walk around the corner from my house. So guess which one I chose. Man,
see, that sacrifice. You wouldn't make that sacrifice though.
Yeah, but see, music was pulling at me. And so what really did it was, in junior high, I was in journalism class. And the Castlemon High School band was coming up to our school to perform. Gregory Cole and the Castlemon High School Jazz Band. And my journalism teacher said, John, since you're a musician, I want you to go and find a member of the band to conduct an interview with. I said, okay. And so I'm a bass player. Then I don't think they had a guitar player at the time. They had 2 bass players that would switch back and forth. One bass player was Kevin Scott, and the other bass player was this guy named Ray Wiggins. So I said, okay, well, I'll interview Ray, not knowing any of the connections. So I did an interview with Ray in junior high school, and when I heard them play, I was like, to hell with our school, I'm going there.
Oh wow, okay.
I'm gonna be in that band because they sounded so amazing. And
wow,
so
they were so good they made you want to switch schools.
Yeah. And Ray, aka Raphael Sadiq, was one of the bass players up there who I happened to have interviewed. Now check this out. So, like I said, their last year was always my first year. I get up to Castlemon. And when I'm there, Tim and Ray, they basically had the run of the school because they were the only bass player and drummer up there. So they were Mr. Cole, the music teacher, he was at their mercy. So band practice was an 8 period at 7 in the morning. And that's early. And those guys would never show up. The only time they would show up is like if they had a performance to do, they maybe would show up just for the rest of the performance. But it was nothing Cole could say because he needed them. Wow. Well, here comes John Payne. My first year up there. First period, 7 a.m. A period. I was there bright and early with my guitar on my back with a suit on, ready.
With a suit on.
Oh, dude. Well, I never shared this with you, but Ray and Elijah and them, they used to call me Baby Time. That was their nickname for me. They called me Baby Time because I was always clean, like Morris, and I had my hair whipped. And so I was there, man, at A period, and because I was hungry. I was like excited. And Cole, he loved me so much. He was glad that I was there. Me and my buddy Andrew Wilson, he was the drummer. God rest his soul, he passed on. But we were there, man. We were the new cats. And man, I came in and learned that stuff, and we were in there playing. And we were sounding so good that the kids would come early to school just so they could come hang out and hear us play.
Wow. Okay.
So this is where the rub begins. This is where the rub begins. So someone told Ray about this new dude. Yeah, man, John Payne's new dude, man. Yeah, man, he bad, man, blah, blah, blah. And then Ray would ask Tim, said, man, what is he good? Is it? Tim's like, he's all right. He's all right. He's all right.
Right.
So Ray had to come find out for himself. So he showed up one morning for jazz band, the A period, and we in there just getting it. And we have a crowd. The girls was there, early in the morning watching us, and I'm sitting there, my suit on me, and so we jam it. And Mr. Cole, Ray walks in, and Mr. Cole goes, "Wait!" And he points at Ray. He goes, "What you doing in here? You see what time it is? Out. And everybody's like, ah, and I was like, oh no. So that was the beginning of Ray hating me back then.
Yes.
I took his place in jazz band.
Not Baby Time.
Yeah, Baby Time came through. But it was the beginning of, I guess what I want to say, a love-hate relationship, because I love that dude. I thought he was bad from day one. I went from interviewing him in junior high to now taking his place in the band. So, but anyway, as time went on during their last year in high school, I don't know how it happened, but we formed a group in the school. Wow. So it was Tim on drums, Ray on bass, I was on guitar, Carl Wheeler, who's one of the members, he was on keys, and there was another guy whose name escapes me. We started a band in school, and we would play for all the assemblies. So my defining moment of when I knew I was going to be in the business and was, we did a show for high school during school hours. We did a concert, and we did 3 songs. We did "I Hear the Secrets That You Keep" by the Romantics.
Wow. Okay. We
did our version of it. We did a funked up version of it. I hear the secrets that you keep. Oh, babe. I'll do some time in there. And the girls went nuts. The whole school just went crazy. So we did that, and we did the instrumental version of a Pointer Sister song, and then this is what did it. I sang "Time Will Reveal" by DeBarge.
Oh, shit. And that's not an easy type of, you're talking about some DeBarge stuff.
Dude,
you gotta know how to sing on that.
That album came out. That All This Love album.
Yeah, that was bomb.
Man, that album but we did that song. I sang. That was it. That's when I knew a star was born. At that point, when I just went that, what can I do? They just went nuts. And
shit. Okay.
I was shocked by the reaction. I have to be honest. I wasn't expecting.
That's when you knew, like, I got to do this. Is what I'm supposed to be doing. Yeah.
It cost me to have a lot of fans, and it cost me to have a lot of enemies too. I remember. I went to my French class the next day, and this French teacher, I'll never forget her. Her name is Miss Sayage.
Miss Sayaj.
Yeah.
And remind me, we're going to go back to the teachers because I wanted to ask you about, is it Mr. Cole you mentioned earlier?
High school teacher, yeah.
Yeah, but Miss Sayaj, go ahead.
He's still in our lives to this very day, but we'll talk about it.
Interesting. Okay, we don't get.
But after that show, it was so big, and our reaction was so powerful. First of all, I went to this girl. Her name was Michelle Cransberry. I can't remember, but she was like a little secretary. She was a very well put together young woman for just to be a senior in high school, and she was so poised and older beyond her years.
Yeah.
And she was in the auditorium with us because we were preparing to do another show, and she was in there, and she was reading this book called Joy of Sex.
I remember that book. I had no business knowing that book, but I know.
And she had her little glasses on. She looked like a little secretary, man. But she was so smart. She was so freaking smart. And everybody loved and had respect for her. And I went up to her and I said, she goes, oh my God, you guys did so good. You're so, I said, and I had to ask her, I said, well, what caused that reaction from you guys to scream like you did for me like that? What caused that? I had to ask her. And she goes, well, you got to understand, everybody already used to Ray and Tim. We used to them. We didn't see them before. You were new. You brought some new, fresh energy, and it was exciting. And I went, oh, wow, okay. So that was the upside. Then the downside was when I went to Miss Sayaj's class the next day. And I walked in, and everybody's like, yay, John! I was a rock star. I walked in, and she says, oh, just sit down. Just sit down, okay? With your little girly voice.
The teacher said that?
Yes, she said that to me.
Wow.
But check this out. Because she didn't like all that adulation I was getting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't want to be canceled when I say what I'm about to say, because this was before woke culture. But she said, sit down. Now, she had a little short cropped, I guess they call it pixie hairdo, where it's really short and they have the little curl on the side. You know those women.
A black teacher? Or?
She was I don't know what nationality she was, but she wasn't black. But you remember Liza Minnelli?
Yes, I know exactly.
Remember how short her hair was? She had that kind of style. It was almost like a man's hairstyle almost. So she tried to clown me in front of the class because she didn't like me getting all that praise and adulation. She goes, oh, just sit down with your little girly voice. And I said,
ooh, I know. I would have lit her up as a
listen, I did. I said, fuck you, bitch, with your transvestite haircut. Get out of my class. Go to the principal's office. Now, you didn't think I was going to let that slide, did you?
I said, fuck you, bitch.
I did. I said, with your transvestite haircut.
Hilarious. I know they was rolling up.
Oh, the class went nuts. Get out of my class. Get out now. You go to the principal's office. And so I said, fine.
She was hating though, for real.
She was, man. And so I go to the principal's office. I'm skipping along because being a principal was cool. It's like Chris Tucker talked about. It was with me. The principal loved us because he loved music. And so I go down there. He said, okay, John, now I'm just getting everybody's account about what went on. Now what happened? I said, well, man, I just mind my own business. I came to class and she, we just did that show, earlier that day, and the class was giving me props, and she told me to sit down with my girly voice. You're gonna try to emasculate me in front of the class, and that was disrespectful.
Right.
So what you say? You say what you say? I said, what you say? You transvestite haircut. I said, yeah. He went, he said, John, you crazy? Well, you crazy. So we had a big laugh over it, me and the principal. So he's like, "Oh, you just sit down, wait till class, and you go to your next class after that."
Wow. What happened with her after that though? You had to go back, right? Or you just?
Huh?
I said you had to go back to the class eventually.
No, I went back to the class, but I think they had a talking to her.
Oh, okay.
And I can't remember if she apologized or what. But anyway, they started getting different accounts of the event, and so they asked the class about what happened. And so those who were there, who were in my corner, they're like, well, he just came in. She told him, sit down with his girly voice. And he was just singing the song the way it is. That's how the song go. He was just singing the song just like it go. They told the principal. So I don't know why she would say that. So anyway, they saw that she was in the wrong, totally, for trying to emasculate me and disrespect me like that. Man. So my retort was not anyways out of line because I was defending myself. At least at the time, it wasn't out of line.
No, well, you could have worded it different, but but how old were you at the time?
I had to be about maybe 15.
See, there you go, man. What is a 15-year-old supposed to say? Ma'am, please don't emasculate me with your hateful word. No, you better.
I don't have that kind of.
That's what I'm saying. Back then, I know how I would have thought. I would have ate her, but it would have been on for life though if I would.
But at that time, you don't have that kind of reasoning and vocabulary. At that time, you're reactional. You're impulsive.
Absolutely.
If someone, if you go up and sleep a poking bear, you're gonna get your head mauled off.
Oh, that's we operate on that. I wish you would say something crazy.
But anyway,
but going back, go back to, because I love that you're speaking about these teachers, because sometimes I think we forget how impactful the teachers are on us coming up and how they can help guide and mentor us. Mr. Cole, that you mentioned him a couple of times. We would give him some flowers. I don't know this gentleman, but I've had teachers like that when I was in school. For me, he was an older Black man in the school, teacher that really wasn't taking no shit from me and helped me, you gonna get your stuff right, bro. Talk to us about Mr. Cole. Like, what was he to you guys there at the school? Was he the teacher of the band or the music teacher? Or what was,
man, he was the Castlemon High School jazz band music teacher, and he was and still is a mentor of ours. I just did a gig with him just last year.
Wow.
Just last year. So it's a relationship that, let me tell you how significant he was and is. Back then, we had talent beyond our years. And so when he saw, like I said, Ray and them, they were 2 years older than us. But me and Elijah, we're the same age. So we were in class together. And it was Elijah, this other really talented gentleman named James Pugh, great vocalist and piano player. James Pugh, Elijah, James Pugh, myself, and then later came Antron, who later joined Toni. And then a drummer named Brian Meter. We were the ones that took up the mantle after Ray and Tim graduated. We started our group. That's when we started our group. And Mr. Cole saw the talent, and he said, after everyone left the class, he pulled us over. He said, come here. I said, give me y'all parents' phone numbers. I'm going to call them, get permission. He said, I think I got an opportunity for y'all to make some money. And he booked us on our first gigs.
Really?
He was the one that booked us on our first paying gigs, man. We played cotillions.
A little club or something? Or?
No, cotillions is the African American version of what a quinceañera is in Latino and Mexican culture.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, so it's like a woman's rite of passage. She's coming into womanhood. That's what a cotillion is. So they dress up in the gowns, and they do the. But
I like that.
Cotillion, man. We play the cotillions, and this is mostly in like the higher income bracket of Black people. They do that kind of stuff.
Probably why I didn't know nothing about it.
Yeah, this is more like the Huxtables or the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air type Black folks. They do cotillions.
A little boule-ish.
Yeah. So we were hired. He hired us as the band. And it was so funny because we would walk in, and the snobby little girls, they look at us and go, "This is the band?" Because we were just kids. And then we would set up, and we would break out, start breaking into some George Duke or some Duke Ellington, all types of music, and they were just blown away. But right then and there, that made me realize I could make a living doing this music thing, even if I'm not famous. We got paid $300 each, and for a 15-year-old.
Yeah, that's some money.
living with their mama. $300 a gig for just a couple hours when all my friends was slaving at McDonald's and fast food and barely would make that in a whole week.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew there was a way for us to do this, and we didn't have to be on the corner slanging dope, you know. So he
Mm-hmm.
taught us a different way. He taught us a way, and he booked us for our first gigs, man.
Wow. And you said you still working with him to this day. You just
Yeah,
did a
man.
show.
He outside of school, he was the music director for this choir called Voices of BB. BB Memorial Church. It's a church in the Bay Area, very popular church where a lot of you know, high profile people go
Okay,
to or whatever. A lot of every politician they go there when they
I
when they're
got you.
trying to run for mayor. But he was the music director there. Him and his beautiful wife Karen Cole, who's also very near and dear to my heart. Um, he was the director of the choir.
Mm,
So that
wow.
was another gig he would book me on when he needed guitar or bass. I would play there, play for BB Memorial Choir. You know,
How long have you known this gentleman?
oh, ever since high school.
Wow.
Yeah, since high school, he was our
It's
high
it's
school music teacher.
it's
It,
people like that. That's what gets us to be great, man. When you have somebody who cares, who's in a position to mentor, who got some power, you know what I mean? Is
oh
connected,
yeah,
can see you.
and till this day, too, till this very day, and every time Ray has a show, Ray invites him to
Oh,
come.
really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, or whenever Raphael's on tour, he'll fly Cole out. They're tight, regardless of what happened in high school. There's we're all it's still a circle. We're all family. So
Love to hear that.
yeah,
Love to hear that, man. Um, Dwayne Wiggins.
yes,
Talk to us about Dwayne Wiggins. Recently passed, a Bay Area legend.
yes.
Gone too soon. I hate that I was not able to go to the sort of reunion tour, 2020 Tony. Again, as a longtime fan, when I heard about that, I was like, "God, I've been waiting years. These brothers are back," and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is a new start." And life is life. He's not here any longer, but yeah, talk to us about Dwayne Wiggins, man.
Well, Dwayne was like the big brother.
Okay.
Um, he was like I said, man, we're like family now. Dwayne is older than all of us. He's about 10 years older than all of us. But he was always like the big brother. Um, so going back to high school with the band that I had with Elijah, his cousin, I was also in another band outside of school called Hot Water. And Elijah mentions this in the documentary. So it was this gentleman named Trenton Gums. And great songwriter and producer. He does film and TV stuff now. But Trenton Gums, he was the keyboard player, and he was putting this group together. And a lot of people know Trent from also he did a lot of the Eddie Murphy stuff. I Was a King, which that Eddie did with Shabba
Oh,
Ranks,
okay. Yeah, yeah,
and What's Up with You, the song Eddie did with Michael Jackson.
yeah. He's on that.
Trent wrote and produced that. He did all of Eddie's stuff.
Okay.
Did all
What's up? What's up with you?
Yeah, right. That's Trent.
Ah,
So Trent was putting this band together along with another gentleman named Derek Graham, who happened to be the son of Larry Graham. And
mm,
they were looking for a guitar player, and someone told them about me. This guy named Terrence Hatter. He was another producer, and so Terrence and Trent went to this place. They went to the school called Institute of Cosmetology.
mm.
That's where they was learning to do hair. And I said, okay, these brothers watch Shampoo with Warren Beatty. That's what they did this to try to get the women.
That's terrible.
We could get girls by doing women's hair. That's even
I
back
haven't
then.
heard about that movie in years. That's funny.
But they knew. That's when they
Right.
had the inside on it. So they was going there. And Terrence told Trent about me, and Trent came up. We hit it off, and we became like Jam and Lewis. We were writing songs together. So I joined their band, and then Antron, who came up to Castlemon later
Mm.
and was in the band with us, he also joined that band with me. So I was playing with Elijah's band, the band with Elijah in the school, and then in this other band outside of school, Hot Water. So in that band, Hot Water, we had two brothers in the group. They were twin brothers, bass player and drummer, John and Paul Warren. Funky. And ironically, their father was the vice principal at Castlemon High School. But they went to Castro Valley. They were like Valley, like, white dudes. But they was funky. They were brothers, but they were brought up in a nice white area where it was rich, crime free. But anyway, they left, and we needed another bass player and a drummer. And as I mentioned, Tim and Ray, they had graduated, and so they were just sitting around the house at the time, doing nothing and catching heat from. Tim was catching heat from his parents. You need to get out of here and get a job. You ain't gonna be sitting around here and laying around my house. Blah, blah.
That's right.
And so they eventually joined the band, Hot Water. Tim and Ray did. Okay. So that's how I ended up in the band with Ray. And I was in the band with Elijah. Okay, so during the time I was in the band Hot Water, circling back to your question, I was just starting out as, guitar player, on a professional level. I had been playing, but then I stepped my game up more towards guitar because Elijah was already playing bass. And I thought Elijah was funky. And I said, well, I'm going to let him play bass. I'll just play guitar so I can have more fun on guitar. And Ray's brother, Dwayne, was already like an accomplished guitar player. And he was always coming around, hanging out, showing us stuff. And I remember back then I didn't have an amp. I didn't have a professional amp. And Dwayne would let me use his Roland JC120 Jazz Chorus amp, for the gigs. And so that's how we connected. He was letting me use his gear. And then he had a Strat. I was playing this Squire SQ Strat, which was funky. It was a funky Strat. The guitar players out there know the SQ series is the coolest Squire because it's actually a Fender. It was just made in Japan. Because at the time, Fender didn't have a plant here in America, so they made all their stuff in Japan. And Squire was one of them. So I had that. But Dwayne had the Strat that he let me use. He wanted to sell it to me. He said, man, and so Ray brought it over to my house. He said, man, Dwayne want to know you want the Strat. He said, you better buy it. It's going to go back in the pawn shop. And I said, well, I don't have the money right now. He said, well, he said you can use it. So Wayne would come out and, he set it up, put nice strings on it. He was coming to all the gigs. And he would come to our recording sessions and stuff. And he was just like a big brother to us, man. He was a mentor, wow. Like it was him and another dude named Robert Ball. Robert Ball is a bass player. Rob had passed away several years ago. But Dwayne always was, as you saw in his life toward the end, after the Toni, he was mentoring new talent. Mm-hmm. He's always been like that, where he would just always come and try to mentor and try to help take you under wing and try to help you. And so that's what he did with me. He's like a big brother. And
that's awesome.
I think excuse me.
Nah, you're good, man.
Tearing up a little bit. There was one time. This was further down the road. First of all, backing up a little bit, we all got our start at this studio called J Jam Studio up in the Oakland Hills on Elysian Fields past Nolan Park Zoo. There's a studio called J Jam Studios, and it was owned by this blind dude named Joe Capers. And God rest Joe Capers' soul. Joe opened the door for all of us. There wouldn't be no Raphael Sadiq, wouldn't be no Dwayne, wouldn't be no Toni, wouldn't be no Digital Underground, wouldn't be nobody if it wasn't for Joe Capers. Because he opened his studio for us. And this was back in the day before ADATs, before computers. Mm-hmm. Recording equipment was expensive.
Yeah. 2-inch tape, 1/4-inch tape.
Yeah, well, he had a 8-track machine. It was an Otari 1-inch 8-track machine, and that machine sounded fat. And matter of fact, the Eurythmics Sweet Dreams, I believe, was done on that machine, But he had that same machine, And that's where we recorded all of our demos. The Tonys, the demo that got them their record deal, that's where they recorded it.
Mm.
And so, we all used to hang up there, Dwayne and all of us at Joe Caper's house. But fast forward, after they got their deal, and I chose to do my thing as a solo artist, I hadn't talked to them in a long time. And they were rolling and doing well. And so you have to understand, during this time when they were out, there were people coming up to me, man, John, you were supposed to be in that group, man. Where you at? Why you ain't with them? Blah, 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 blah. And said, they didn't know what I knew about, the guys in the band and stuff. And like I said, those are my brothers and I love them. But I already knew early on that there was going to be some issues. Let me share this one. Let me share this one example. We were rehearsing for this. When we had the band Hot Water, we used to play for these colleges for the frat parties and stuff.
Okay.
And we used to play at the Boardwalk in Santa Cruz. This place called I forget what's the name of the place, man. It was a cool venue, but we had some really cool gigs. Well, anyway, we was at rehearsing for one of these showcases. And though we was making money, all of our money went back into our gear. We went back into buying equipment. So for me, I want these Boss effects pedals. That was my dream thing. I had to have these Boss effects pedals because later on, as I saw, that's what Prince had. And I still got those same effects pedals to this day. That's why I was able to have Prince's tone exactly when I played with the Revolution.
Is there something beeping on your end? I don't know if you hear that.
It is. I got it.
Sorry about that.
Well, that was coming through, boy. Sensitive mic. Am I talking loud? Too loud?
No, you sound fine, but that beeping was jumping out for a while. But you're good.
Okay. So anyway, we were rehearsing for this showcase, and see, this is when I knew that we weren't gonna make it as a band. This is when I knew. Yeah. It's just the little things that you see. But we were rehearsing at this rehearsal studio in Hayward on Hesperian. I will never forget it. And across from the street from it was this McDonald's. And so when we got out of the rehearsal, we were so tired and hungry because we were trying to get the show right. And we didn't have any money. Like I said, we put all our money back into our equipment and stuff. And so when I got out of rehearsal, it was so hungry. And I think Ray had just started working at UPS. I think he lasted there maybe a day or two. but he had money. And so when we got out of rehearsal, he disappeared. We're like, man, where did Ray go? Where did Ray go? And the smell of the cheeseburgers were coming in. This is when you could get 2 for 99 cents.
This is back in the day then.
And the smell was coming, man. And Antron, he loved McDonald's. Oh my God. And so we were so hungry, man. We were like, oh man, this burger smells good. Who we see coming across the street from McDonald's with a bag? And it's Raphael.
Man.
And we go, and he's eating one of them. We go, oh man, Ray, come on, man. Can we get a piece of that burger, man? Please, man. I swear I'll pay you when we get home, man. Give me a piece of the burger, man. We were so hungry. We said, man, please, Ray, give us a plate. Ray looked at us. He took the burger out the bag, and he licked the bun, and licked the patty. He said, here, you still want some?
You was on that?
At that point, I said to myself, we ain't going to make it as a band. It's every man for himself.
My man said, it feels good.
Wow. I wonder if he still remembers that. I talked to Tron about it the other day, and Tron remembers it like it was yesterday. But he licked the patty and said, here, you still want some? You still want some? I said, oh. So that's when I started looking at other avenues. So check this out. So fast forward, we're at J Jam's rehearsing, Joe Caper's studio.
Mm-hmm.
And Joe, he's such a trickster, man. He used to do this thing where we used to cap on each other. And he used to, cap, all of us, he used to cap on us. And John, get your little Michael Jackson talking ass over here. I said, man, shut up, Robert Winterson Fall. We used to go back and forth. A lot of people don't know who Robert Winterson Fall is. But anyway, one day we came in and Joe said, all right, y'all better be nice to me because I got some information that could probably change your life. And we was like, what is he talking about? What is he talking about? So we went on and rehearsed, and then some of us left. But Ray and Tim and then that was another thing. This dude named Carlos Stanfield started coming around, who eventually ended up being the manager for the Tonys. He was coming around. But anyway, we left that day, and Ray stayed behind. And we was like, what is Joe talking about? He's got information that will change our lives. We don't. Well, fast forward later that week to the next rehearsal. Ray comes in, and he goes, guys, I have an announcement to make. And I don't think the band had been together maybe even a year with them as our bass player and drummer. But Ray comes in with this announcement. He goes, I got an announcement to wait. He goes, I'm going to be leaving the band. And we're like, really? Well, what's up? He says, I'm going on tour. Well, who are you going on tour with? Sheila E. And we're like, oh. So that was the call that Joe.
Interesting. Wow.
Oh, that watch is driving me nuts. You don't hear it, do you?
Oh, I don't hear anything.
Okay, good. So anyway, that was the call that came in that Joe got, and it was from Levi Caesar. And,
wow.
And Levi was calling around saying, "Hey man, I'm putting this band together for Sheila. I need some young hot players. Let me know if you know of anybody." So Joe told them about the audition, and them niggas secretly went down there behind our backs and auditioned. Didn't tell me nothing. And came back and he got the gig. Hey. And then the next day, Tim came back all smiling. He went and auditioned for the drummer. Then he got the gig as the drummer on the Sheila E tour.
Yeah.
And so both of them, I think they were looking for a keyboard player. So both of them together with their influence, they pulled in Carl. So Tim, Ray, and Carl, who were key members of the Tonys, they all went on tour with Sheila E. when she opened for Lionel Richie on the Dancing on the Ceiling tour.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. They went and they toured with her. So, and I already knew all this was going to happen. Like right when they joined the band, just from working with them back in high school, I already knew, like I said, it was like a grudging admiration that they kind of had. It was a love-hate thing. But anyway,
go ahead. I was going to say, when you started to see this, how did you feel about that?
Which part?
Like, oh, he's leaving the band to go on tour.
I was happy for them. I wish I was a part of it, of course. But Levi had moved over from bass over to guitar. He was the MD, I believe. And so he went, because the first band, Levi was on bass, and he had this really bad white dude on guitar named Stephen Birbaum. He was a rocker type dude. And who else was in that first band? I can't remember. But anyway, the second band, Levi was on guitar, Ray was on bass, Tim was on drums, Bonnie Boyer was on keys, Carl was on keys, and then the saxophone player who still works with all of those guys till this day, named Norbert Stachel. He was on horn. And so they were Sheila's band. They went out. And I was proud of them, man. I was happy for them. I wish I could have been there, of course, but I was proud, and during this time we were kind of still we were still boys, especially Tim, because Tim lived right across the street from me. So Tim would invite me to the shows and stuff, like when they played at the Coliseum. Tim's like, man, yeah, come on. He gave me backstage passes and everything. We hung out. And so for some reason, while I was backstage hanging out, they made everybody leave the backstage area. Say, hey, you guys got to leave. Everyone who's not a member of the band has to go. And we're like, what's all this? And so we leave, and they go in and do their show. And then Sheila goes into Love Bazaar. Then Prince comes on stage and starts doing Love Bazaar with her. And so Prince was there. That's why they didn't want to know. It was supposed to be a surprise. So
What show was this at again?
this was the Dancing on the Ceiling tour. This is at the Coliseum. But all throughout that tour, Prince would pop up at different dates and sit in with Sheila. Because keep in mind, this is right when Sheila's star was rising, when she was really starting to be looked at as a bona fide artist and singer in her own right, aside from just a percussionist. The song "Touch Me, Hold Me" is the name of it. That was out at the time.
That's the third album.
That's the third album. That was the third album, and she was really about to just come into her own. She had to open the spot with Lionel Richie on that tour, and she was being turned on to a whole nother audience, and she was about to go to the next level. So this is what I mean when I say Prince actually started Toni. People, now you're probably wondering what I mean by that. So what happened is when Sheila was doing this, and people can feel free to correct me if they got more details, but I know I was there and I had insight on what was happening. But that's why you never sign a deal with a label that's owned by another artist, because that artist ain't gonna never let you get bigger than them.
Right.
And so Sheila was really blowing up at the time, and Prince started coming to the shows. And a lot of times people didn't even know who Prince was because he had got all his hair cut off back then. So everybody's like, who's that little light-skinned boy on stage doing the splits? My mother said, because she went to the show. Oh, that was Prince? That was Prince? So anyway, out of the blue, I think Sheila's about to just start working on her next record. Out of the blue, he just pulled her and said, hey, I want you to come play drums for me. You know, I mean, I'm sure there's more details about how that went down. But anyway, out of the blues, the guy said, hey, man, we're coming home. I'm like, what happened to gig with Sheila? She fired us. She's going to go play drums with Prince. Prince wants her to play drums on his Sign of the Times. So he just yanked her.
Yeah, that's wild when you think about it.
Yeah. You know, and she had to, because, you know, he made her, you know, and she was signed to his label. So, I mean, like, what she going to say no? So anyway, those guys were sent home. And what's cold-blooded about that, and I think it's covered in that documentary Elijah did, before they got sent home, Sheila's head of security, yeah, I'm going to mention his name. Henry Royale is his name. Henry Royale. He went, when they knew they were going to get fired, he went and came back and gave them all applications to McDonald's.
What?
He went to McDonald's and got job applications and said, hey, man, you guys are going to be needing these. And gave them McDonald's.
That's a cold move, man.
It was. And Tim, it's funny because Tim showed it to me. Yeah. And they, you know, they did it to taunt them. So those guys ended up being sent back home, and they didn't know what they were going to do. So they said, well, you know what? We got to go for it now. And that's when they joined. That's when they formed Toni. Now, originally, it was just Tim, Ray, and Dwayne. And I think Ray, if you look at past interviews, he'll tell you they originally started out like trying to be like the Police, a black version of the Police. You know, because they were doing alternative funk rock type music. And so I remember some of the songs. And so, like I said, they went back up to J Jam, Joe Caper Studio. They recorded those songs. They had a song called 2000 Vibes. 2000 Vibes. I know Ray remember that song. and then they had another song called 361.5. And Dwayne would be put in jail right now if he would release that song right now. 361.5 is the penal code for statutory.
Whoa.
For underage.
Whoa.
Dating a minor. It's the code for dating a minor. But
interesting.
Actually, that song is on their first album. Hanging out in B-Town. Never thought I'd come a 361.5. Yeah,
Huh.
I think that's on the first album, the Who album.
I gotta hear that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Who? Here we go. Yeah, it is 26 1.5.
Yep.
26 1.5.
Yep. That's it. That was one of the first songs they did a demo with.
Oh.
That 2000 vibes, and there's a song called "I Just Want to Dance," and I think they independently did a pressing on that. They did a single, 33 single on that.
Oh wow, okay.
Carlos Stanfield, I think he put up his own money to put that out. So I just wanna dance. I just wanna dance with you. I just wanna dance. It's funny. I still remember all that stuff, man. And
Love it.
let's see. There was just so much stuff, man. There was just so much stuff. But anyway, they put the band together, and Carlos shopped them around to everybody. Shopped them around to one of his buddies who he used to play basketball with, who was an A&R director at A&M, who signed Janet Jackson, this gentleman named John McClain.
Oh, okay. Yep.
And I think John was right about to sign them, but I think at that time he had just signed Jesse Johnson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Wow. And so for some reason that didn't work out. And Ray got mad. Ray used to get mad at because A&M passed on him. And so he said, Ray used to go, man, fuck A&M. A&M stands for average musician.
Oh.
average musician. Man, I don't be on A&M records anyway. But anyway, all the labels passed on him. Even Ed Eckstein, who had just started a new label called Wing Records, which was a subsidiary of Polydor, which was Cameo's original label.
Okay.
He had revived that label called Wing Records, and they had passed on him. I think the only person they had signed at the time was Vanessa Williams, Miss America.
Oh, the right stuff.
Yeah, and then later on they signed Brian McKnight. But then what happened was the guys got with Tommy and Denny, Thomas McElroy and Denzel Foster, who had just did In Vogue.
Yeah, it was hot.
And it was hot. And so they walked the Tonys back into Ed Eckstein at Wing. And they said, man, we already passed on them, you know. And then Tommy and them convinced them and said, no, man, we know what to do with them. Just trust us, you know. We know. So they were signed under the production deal with Tommy and Denny, and then that's how they got their deal. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. As we get ready to wrap things up here, what any lasting things you know you want to share in terms of the Bay? We really was talking about coming, talking about just giving it up for Dwayne Wiggins and stuff, but in yourself as well. Like any of the last things you want people to know, to understand. Some stuff we should go look out and check out.
Definitely next weekend, in regards to Dwayne, like I said, Dwayne was an innovative musically. After I mentioned, after they got their deal, he went on to try to help other people. So he started a studio called House of Music. And through those doors, Dwayne had coming through those doors before people knew who they were, Alicia Keys, India Arie, Keisha Cole, and then another young lady with 4 other singers named Beyonce, Destiny's Child.
Right.
Dwayne was responsible for help launching the career for all those people. And so people don't know that. So he was very instrumental in not only with my situation, but a lot of people's situations. And also to his sons, he almost got his son a record deal. They were on that show, America's Got Talent. And they were finalists.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they were. Well, guess who the lead singer of that group was? This young lady named Kalani.
Oh, okay. I've heard him mention her in some interview or something. Now I see.
Yes, that's where he had her signed to that. They had a group called Pop Life.
Okay.
And my friend, who's a drummer named Randy Merritt, his son was also in that band, and they had gotten offers for deals, and but Dwayne
Hmm.
wouldn't do the deal because he felt the deals weren't right. Going through things, having been through things himself, he recognized he wanted something better, and they were really upset about it. But Dwayne meant well, But getting back to what you're saying in conclusion, the guy did a lot of cool stuff for people, and he will be missed.
Wow.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel bad. I want to share this one experience, and I'll let you go. But as I mentioned, they went on and got their deal, and I was doing my independent thing. And there was a period of time I was just really low key. I wasn't doing any shows, and people kept saying, "Man, when you gonna play? Man, when you gonna play again? When you gonna play?" So I said, "Okay." I finally decided to do this big all-star gig. I hadn't gigged in years. And I had my buddy, it was me and my buddy Jimmy Drake from Digital Underground, the one you know from Force One Network, Latoya London, a lot of different artists. And I did a show at this place called Shattuck Download. And then out of nowhere, Dwayne shows up. He shows up and he kept sending people up to me on stage. And they were like, "Hey man, Dwayne wants to sit in. Dwayne wants to sit in." I said, "Listen, when I'm ready to call Dwayne up, I'll call him up. Just have him chill out right now." I said, "This is my moment." I said, "I ain't never went to no Tony gigs trying to jump on stage." I said, "This is my moment." And so I was up there and we were getting down. It was a packed house, people loving it. And the more they loved it, more Dwayne wanted to get it. He kept sitting the people up there bugging me. "Man, Dwayne said he wants to sit in. Dwayne said he wants to sit in." I said, "I will call him if I should choose. Just wait." Well, after this brother had got enough drinks in him, he jumped up on stage and grabbed my guitar. And I turned around, he done grabbed my guitar and stepped on my distortion pedal. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I went over and I pulled the cord out the amp.
Oh Lord, damn.
And then Jimmy said, "Man, just let him play, man." And then Ray was like, "Man, I've known this dude since he was in the band with my brother. We go way back, blah, 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 blah." And I said, "Okay, well, that's interesting. You weren't saying all that." So I plugged back and we went in and we did Let's Get Down. We went in and did Let's Get Down. And even had the nerve to bring his bass player with him, Vernon Hall. And so we did Let's Get Down. And I said, "Okay, you happy now? Okay, go sit down." I said, "Okay, y'all, back to our regularly scheduled program." Pop, 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 boom, 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 bam, 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 went into knee deep and funked it up. And he came back and got mad. That wasn't enough for him. So this time, after he got more drinks in him, he jumped on stage. He grabbed my background singer's mic, grabbed another one of my background singers' mic, and I had my back turned playing guitar, and he had grabbed my mic, and he jumped on top of a speaker and was telling everybody, "Say Toné, Toné, Toné." Tried to take over my gig, right? Now Payne ain't having that. So I went over to my security guy. I said, "Please get Dwayne off the stage." And so while he's on stage clowning, I said, "Put the spotlight on him. Make it hot. Make it blowtorch hot. Give it up, y'all, for Dwayne, for Toni. And right as they did that, my bodyguard went, snatched him down, and all the microphones went. And I'm like, "Come on, Wayne, now you knew better than that." Now, see, people who know me, they know I will invite anybody on my stage. But it's got to be done the right way. You just can't come bum rushing like that. But anyway, afterwards, we had to talk about it, and he realized he was wrong, and we was cool after that. So I just wanted to clarify that, because a lot of people was like, "Oh man, I heard you had Dwayne snatched off the stage." I said, "No, man, there's more to it than that."
Was that like a thing people was talking about?
Yeah. Oh yeah, because he had a thing for doing that on other people's gigs. There was this saxophone player named Jay Spencer. His real name is Jeffrey McCormick, but his name was Jay Spencer. He was signed to Motown. They had a subsidiary called Mojazz, and Foley from Miles Davis Band was assigned to that label, and Jay was on there. But anyway, we had a place called Kimball's East, and Jay Spencer used to perform. Every time he'd be on saxophone playing, he'd look, hear somebody going bloop, 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 and it's Dwayne. So he always had a thing where he would come and crash other people's gigs. So when I did that, I was everybody's hero because they were like, "Oh man," you know. And I felt bad about it afterwards because I said, "Man, if you just let me, if you had just let me get to you, I would have, you know." I said, "But you was clowning that night, Wayne. You couldn't do that." He said, "Man, that's true. That's true. That's
He
true."
was on one.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to put that out there, let it know
Yeah.
that we was cool at the end, regardless of that happening, and that his death was a surprise and an unfortunate one to everyone. And we kind of now know why they got together and went out and did this. I mean, I don't know if Ray knew if he was sick or not, but you could tell things were different, you know.
Got it. Well, man, John, man, thank you so much, man, for sharing all of this with us and giving us the opportunity to sort of relive it with you a little bit, man. That's something we don't take for granted. So I personally want to thank you, man, for coming on and sharing this.
Yeah.
Seeing how it's moving you, and I know a lot of people are going to be able to listen to this, and it's good so we can put a lot of stuff in perspective and just get a deeper understanding of all that you do and everyone around you and Toni and all that good stuff, man. Because all of those groups, all you guys, man, it matters to us as music fans around the world. So it's glad, I'm appreciative that I've gotten to know you somewhat, that you can come and feel comfortable to share this with us, man. So I want to say thank you for that.
Absolutely, man. And I had wanted to wait. I didn't want to do it like right after the moment, because I didn't want people to be like, "Oh man, he out there, he's clout chasing, man." Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's none of that. I don't need you don't see me up on YouTube putting videos out every week. I don't do that. I don't need it. It's just that I have information, I have a relationship with these guys, and I have story to tell. And that's the only thing. So it took me a while to wrap my mind around all this. What happened, just losing him, Chris Jasper, Roberta Flack, all those people in such a short period of time next to each other. But next weekend at Jeffrey's Inner Circle, for those who are going to be in the Bay Area, they're doing a remembering service for Dwayne, a memorial service. I think that's the 27th, next Saturday, I believe that is. And that's going to be at Jeffrey's Inner Circle, which is a place he frequented a lot in Oakland. That's Oakland. So you guys can look it up on the web. I'm sure you'll find the address. But that's next weekend. They're going to be doing a tribute for Dwayne in Oakland.
All right, man. Thank you for sharing that. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we'd love to hear your comments as well and your thoughts on what you just heard here. We want to give it up to John Wesley Payne. Where can they find you online, sir?
Oh man, Facebook, John Wesley Payne, and put in a search in, and there's some stuff will come up. I haven't been very active online lately because I'm trying to get my daughter through this last year of high school.
Oh, okay.
So the prom was just last weekend, and I got her cap and gown and her pictures. Trust me, once after June, you should be hearing more stuff. We got some things planning, but right now, I just want to be a dad. It's just so many of my friends had kids and then went on the road and then came back and the kids was grown up. And I just didn't want to be another one of those. So I fulfilled my 18 to 20 year sentence. Anyway, it's never over. It's never over being a dad, but right now I'm going to get back to be doing a lot of great music, and I'm looking forward to being back with the fans and the people out there again on a regular basis. I've still been doing things here and there. I worked with a great artist named Selena Johnson a few months ago from Chicago. She worked a lot with Robert Kelly. She's from Chicago. Yeah, Selena Johnson's great R&B singer. But yeah, I've been doing things here and there. But now, John Payne and Hurt project, the new John Payne and Hurt project is in progress right now. So that's what I'm here working on.
That's what's up. All right, man. Well, continued blessings to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for listening and being here with us. As I always say, work it like a job. We'll see you next time. Peace.